So how do you build a dashboard? Like the dashboard you see, all those interactive dashboard and all that. That's what we'll be looking at in this video. So we'll be fast tracking what we're building using the help of Bubble component library. If you've checked my previous videos, you'll see how to use the Bubble component library. But basically, you need to click on this icon to make sure you get access to that library. Make sure you have changed this from fixed to column, and so that that will disappear. And then we'll just take one of any of these that has a sidebar by the side. So we'll just check for the one that fits our use case. That's really cool. I think any of this one that has like a search box or a search bar would work. Like if you take this one now, this one has a lot of things there. It has the notification settings and all that. It also has this by the side. So we'll just use this one. Now you also notice that by the side here is the menu, while this other side, let me get rid of this. While this other side is the main part. So we choose to say we want this height to take up the full screen. So where's the height? So like the height here is 60. You could choose to say hey, we want it to take up the whole height, or you can work around this just as you would love it to be. This is just one of the other dashboards that you can use. So you could just check out what works for you, and that would be it. Now with all the components painted on our page, the next major thing that we need to do is to now display data in the main Windows part here, or the main part here, with the right data based on the different buttons that will be clicked here. So we'll do this in the basic way, and then we'll do this in the more advanced way, whereby we'll have little errors to fix our database also for future purposes. So what we will do now is, all right, we'll just go ahead. We'll set up some sort of maybe text here. When you of course building out something real in real life, it may be different, right? So we'll just use text to show what happens when we click on each of the buttons. All right. So we'll just drag in some text. Let's move this to this side and drag in some text like that. So this should be inside of the window like so. And let's make this really big so that it takes up a huge part. And then we can see this is dashboard, something like that. Yep. Paste, say this is docs, something like that. We'll paste. Say this is project, like that. We can choose to do this for all of them, but we'll just stick to these three, and of course you can finish up if you choose to. We just want to show how you can show one thing at a time on the screen. So at this moment, if we try to paint the screen, we'll be seeing everything that is on that page, which is not what we want. We want it to be that when you click on this dashboard button, we see only dashboard. When you click on the docs, we see only docs. So once you understand it this way, it will be easy to now do whatever I want to do on the page. So we'll just make sure that we put all of this into their own group. So just make sure they're inside of their own group. So dashboard. Like that. These two should be inside of his own group, like that. Docs. And this one too, inside of his own group. Project. Like so. And now something else you need to note is that you always set them to not be visible on page load, so that you can now set the condition as to make them visible whenever you click on a particular button. So for that reason, we'll set the three of them to not be visible on page load, and then make sure that the collapse when hidden is clicked. So with that setup, let's go back and see and work on our buttons. So here in the button, we'll be working with these first three buttons. You can work on these other ones as test to check out what you've done so far. So what we want to do is to add a workflow and then set up parameters. So once parameters like we have on top of here. So for example, at this top, we'll have a parameter known as debug mode, and it can be set to true or false. So when we set it to false, then we'll have this panel go off. So we'll just clear that off, and just in case you don't understand what we're talking about, it becomes clearly understandable. So because the part from the question mark debug mode is off, we no longer have the debug panel down here. So what we want to do is to add our own parameter, and we'll call it tab. Then as the tab changes, we want to see each of those text on our page. So let's drag this a little bit downwards, and then let's add a workflow. And here in this workflow, we'll just say something like we want to go to page. So which page? We are going to the same page because we are currently on the dashboard page. However, we want to send more parameters to the page. So the parameter I want to send is tab, and what we want to send here is dashboard, like that. So let's make sure we write that correctly, dashboard. So once we do that, we want to come back to our page here and come back to this group dashboard. All right, let's come back to this group dashboard here and set up a conditional. So what we want is when the tab reads dashboard, then we want to show this. So remember that from the beginning, we have set this element to not be visible on page load. So here in the conditional, we want to get data from page URL, and the data we want to get, the parameter name is tab. And once we have set up the tab like that, we want to say when the tab is dashboard, like that. Type it out. So we want this to display only when the tab says dashboard. So this element is visible, right? Make sure it's checked like this. So let's go back and do a refresh. So nothing is showing on the page, and when we click on dashboard, it shows us dashboard because we have just set the tab to dashboard. Now when you click on docs, nothing happened because we've not done that. So let's go back, let's work on the docs and work on the project. So let's do that. So we'll go add a workflow, and in the workflow, we want to go to, we're going to page, we're going to the dashboard page, yes. And then here, we're not sending any data, we just want to send more parameters. And what we want here is tab, and this tab should be docs, like that. Let's also do the same thing for the project. Add workflow, and then go to, we're going to dashboard, the same page, and setting tab here, we want it to be projects, yeah. And then let's go back here in the body. We want to set up the conditional for docs. So we want to get data from page URL, and we're getting tab, and we want it to be when it's docs, like that. Element is visible. Same thing with that of the projects. So you could choose to just copy the conditional like this, come here, paste it. So we change this to project. Element is visible. So let's go do a refresh and try it out, see what we get. So currently we're on the dashboard. So click on docs and the tab changes to docs. Then we have docs here. Then click on projects. It changes to projects here and we have projects, right? So this is a basic way of, setting up dashboard. But here's the problem with this approach. First, we had to set up the button name, which is dashboard here. And notice that it is capitalized. Yeah, of course, capitalized here. Then after this, we had to go to the workflow part. Here in the workflow part, we set up the tab to dashboard. Now, after here, we had to go back, come to the main group here, and then we set up the conditional, and we also hard coded dashboard. Now, the problem with this is if at any of this stage we make a mistake with the way we name these things, it becomes invisible, a problem, and it becomes a bug. So we have to go and fix. So what I was saying, so let's go back and say here in dashboard, we decide to do DA and forget the S and do a da board, something like that, and come back here and try. So let's do a refresh. So I want it to change us to dashboard. Now notice that it's not going to show us anything. And now, because we have used this dashboard in many places, we'll have to start, going through, checking the button. Did we make a mistake in the button? Okay. Did we make a mistake here in the workflow? Okay. Did we make a mistake maybe while setting up the conditional? And now you notice that you made a mistake in the conditional. You have to fix it, and then it should get working when you do a refresh this time around. So we want to avoid mistakes like this. And how we avoid mistakes like this is having one source of truth, making it easy for ourselves, for our future self to be able to debug when there is a problem. And in fact, to avoid bugs completely. So what do? We need to go and do some sort of restructuring, making our application get information from one particular point, right? All right. So let's go back to our pitch here. We'll have to make a bunch of changes around here. So the first place we want to make some changes would be here in the button, and we'll make use of what we know as reusable components. All right. Oh, all right. So how do we do this? The first thing we need to do is to make sure we are getting all our data from one source of truth. So what we can do at this point is to want to convert this or group this particular button into a group. All right. So use a column container like this, and we change this group to dashboard, something like that. So now that we have this set up like this, we can now set up that the type of content we want for this group is text, and then the content should be dashboard, like so. So now that we set it, we have the button living inside of it. Now we want to get the label of this button, not hard-coded, but from its parent. So we can just insert dynamic data and say we want this label to be parent groups text, like that. So having set that up, we can apply the same thing for all of them here, converting them to group and then setting it up as we want. But let's do a refresh and just to preview what we have done so far. So everything still looks the same, like nothing changed, still looks good. All right, so let's go back and apply the same thing to the rest of them. So also group this one in a column container, and of course change this to group docs, type text, and then want this to be docs, like that. Then for the button here, we want it to be parents groups text, like that. for this one, group column, right? Project, type text, project, like that. And then for the button, parent groups text. So now that we have this set up, we just do a refresh to make sure everything still looks good. So just as we left it. So everything is still working fine. And the only thing we've changed, which is a major change, is putting all of them inside of a group and making sure that the text is coming from this data source. So now that we've set this up, we'll now have to go make some changes in how we have set up um, our data URL or parameter URL. So we go back to what we've done already. So we just see this and say edit workflow. So here we are still going to the dashboard page, but for the tab here, we don't want it to be the hard-coded dashboard, but we want it to be dynamically gotten. So we want it to be parent groups text. So once you set it up to parents group text, that means it's getting it from the same source of truth. Now we can apply this to all of the buttons. So we can go back, come down here, do edit workflow, come down here, change this to parents groups text like that. Now we could also come here directly and change this for the last one, parents groups text. So instead of having to go through here and come down here, we just went direct. So you see. All right, so let's do a refresh and see what we have now. So when we click on dashboard, notice that dashboard is no longer showing, simply because the dashboard we have here in the parameter is now capitalized. So let's try using the small one and hit enter. And notice that it shows up. So this is that problem we're talking about. If you don't have one source of truth, one minor break like this can change everything. So let's make sure that we have one source of truth for the components inside of the main window here. So let's close this off and come to the windows here, drop it down. And then instead of hard coding this time around, we want to get from the same source of truth. But for us to do it, we also want to simplify this so that we don't always have to use get tab from URL, get tab from URL. Okay. So let's use what we call a hidden variable. So for that, we just bring up a pop-up. And here, this pop-up, we'll call it pop-up hidden variable. Now, some people could choose to use what we call states on the page, but using hidden variable is actually better. It is more organized and easier to use. So we'll drag a group into, so the group entered the wrong place. So we'll drag a group into the pop-up. We want to make sure that we have that group inside of the pop-up. So the group is here. So let's get it up from here and show it up here, paste it in. Same thing with the text. So the text is just as an identifier. We're trying to identify, not sure why it's leaving where it's supposed to be. So we're just trying to identify what this particular group stands for. So this is active tab, group active tab. And the text would be maybe active tab, something like that. So just to identify that this is a variable, so we could just add a var in front. So var group active tab, and I will set it to be of group of type text. And then here we want to get data from URL. So the data we're getting from URL is a tab. So once again, we are getting one source of truth. So if you were to do this, of course, you saw how we did it in the previous section. You have to use the tab severally. So imagine when you change it from tab to maybe tabs or use a capital letter, you see it would not work. So we just get whatever is in that tab and store it over there. So now, when we go back to our group here, in setting our conditionals, what we need to do is to say var group active tab text is same thing as the group dashboard. So let's look for the dashboard group, dashboard. So group dashboards text. So now we have two dashboards here that is confusing. So we want to, make a bit of a change to these things. So we could do body here, or we could just come to the tab here and change all of them to tab. So here we'll make sure that this contains tab, so something like that. This one too should have a tab as part of the name so that we can easily identify what we're doing, tab, like that. So now let's come back here, and we're saying that we are checking for when var group active tab text is when it is the same thing as the group dashboards tabs text. That's what we are checking. So notice that we are not hard coding anything here. What we are just checking is for the variables that are in these two things that have been passed to each other. So we just want to make sure that the active tab is this text that we have here. So we'll just do the same thing for the rest of them. So let's copy them, come here, and let's paste it. So we are checking if this group's active tab is the same thing with the docs one. So instead of checking for the dashboard, we are checking for the docs. So the group docs tab text, like that. So we'll do the same thing for the last one, which is for the project. So clear off all of this. So is the var group active tabs text the same thing with the group's project tab text? So that's what we're checking. Now, what again I want you to notice is that everything is coming from this particular group. So the group where we've inputted this dashboard. So let's go back, do a refresh, and let's try it off again. Now notice that the dashboard with the lowercase d is no longer working, but let's hit this and you see it's working, and we now have a capital D, which is exactly what we have here on the tab name. So that's for the docs works, that for the project works. Now of course we didn't work on any of this, you can check it out by yourself, but it just shows you how these things can easily work and how your project becomes more robust and easily debuggable compared to what we had before, right? So if you want to probably advance this a little more bit, you could choose to now convert this to a reusable element. I have a video on reusable elements or reusable components, how you can create reusable component. And of course, once you do that, it creates another level of abstraction that gives you cleaner code and non-repetitive code. So that is it for this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.